Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and a new video on the R80ST. This is the second part of the brakes video, so I'm going to rebuild the caliper, the master cylinder and put it all together. If you want to see part 1, I'm going to leave a link in the description, or you could just check my channel and find it there. So yeah, let's crack on with this. Right, so here we are, ready to start with the fun bit, cleaning obviously. And yeah, what do we have to do? Well, I think the master cylinder is the main culprit. It's just all seized up and nothing quite works properly. If you look in there, you can see just a lot of gunk, not that much fluid. And you saw what came out in the drip tray. It's all full of debris. So yeah, main bit, clean this really well. And we can see probably some leaks right there, which seems to be right under the master cylinder reservoir. So I hope this is still fine to use, but I have to take this apart and there's an O-ring under there, which we're going to replace. And also a rebuild kit. We're going to put this all together and it should be good as new. About the caliper, well, it was a shame not to do anything, in my opinion. So I decided to give this a clean. So we're obviously going to have new brake pads when it's going back. I may have already mentioned, but it's also going to get a brand new disc as well. Gonna push the pistons out and replace all the seals, and might as well put new pistons in there, and also have a brand new bleed nipple and a dust cap. And that's about it. Looking at it now, I sort of wish I would have replaced these pins, would have got new ones. They still work, they just need a good clean. But yeah, they've seen better days. So I'm not gonna bore you with cleaning. I'm just gonna have a toothbrush. I borrowed from my wife, obviously, not gonna use mine. Some brake cleaner, give everything a good clean, put them on a clean paper towel, and then start stripping them and cleaning them again. So let's go for it. So I've got the two halves of my caliper all clean, everything's good here, it's all great. First thing I want to do is check if my pistons fit. So just drop it in the hole and it's lovely. So just wanted to make sure they are the right size before I put the seals in. And now I've got the two seals, the two main seals. The dust seals are over here. And I'm also going to put a new bleed nipple and a cap in it. New pads, obviously. And I'm also going to get new stainless steel pins for the pads. I've already ordered them, I'm just waiting for them to arrive. So yeah, we're ready to put the caliper back together. And one thing I like to do before I put the seals in is put a bit of rubber grease in the groove right behind the seal. So if you take apart like really old, really corroded calipers, you're going to see quite a bit of corrosion behind the seals a lot of the time. If any moisture gets past the dust seal, if there's any crack or anything, it will end up behind the main seal. So yeah, by adding a bit of red rubber grease in that groove, it's going to keep that moisture away. So I'm just adding a thin coat of grease on the back of the seal as well, and I carefully install it in the groove, making sure it doesn't get cut or pinched on anything, and making sure it's properly seated and not twisted in any way once it's in the groove. Sliding the new piston in, observing how easily it slides. And now I'm applying some grease in the undercut and in the dust seal as well before I put them in, just because I want that grease barrier in there, which also helps with keeping moisture and debris out. Right, so now it's time to put the two halves together. Got the seals and pistons all in place. Got two O-rings for the two passages that communicate from one side to the other. So you feed brake fluid into one side, it goes into the piston, but you've got this port here which communicates with the other side, so pushes fluid in both sides at the same time, which is what it should do, obviously. And I've got two O-rings because that's what came in the kit, but you only actually need one. The other port is blank on this one. Probably other applications have both holes in, but I am going to use both O-rings just because I want to. So let's go for it. Put a bit of red rubber grease so it helps it stay in. A bit more on this one. Alright, try not to move the caliper around, put it straight above the two holes, and put the bolts in. Now I'm just going to run the bolts all the way, nip it together so make sure the O-rings don't move anywhere. And these need to be torqued down. I'm going to do that once it's on the bike. Once I bolted these two, I can use a torque wrench on these to bolt it down. But what I'm also going to do is take, once they're all the way down, take one at a time, put some blue Loctite, and then torque it to spec. Right, there's something I wanted to show you before I put them together, but they're together now, so we'll just have to do it as it is. And that's how can you check that your pistons are free, whether it's a new rebuilt caliper or it's your old one. How can you check that your pistons are running in and out free and they won't cause you any trouble? Well, here's a little thing I like to use. Let's just grab some compressed air. I'm going to put my fingers in there so they don't pop out in case I put too much pressure. But just grab a little air, put it in your feed, and watch the pistons. They'll come out. Not sure how well you can see that. That's why I wanted to do it with the two halves still apart. But I'm not pushing them with my fingers. Look, air pushes them out, but look how easily they get pulled back in. Push them all the way in now. And I'm not putting any pressure with my fingers, I'm just keeping there so they don't pop out. And this seems to be working properly. So I've got a new set of stainless pins for the brake pads as well, because the old ones were quite grubby looking, but strangely I had to use the snap rings from the old pins. The new ones were just a bit too thin and weren't quite locking in place in the caliper. So I'm just applying a bit of grease on the pins and on the sides of the brake pads where they make contact with the caliper, and putting everything back in as it came apart, just making sure not to contaminate the face of the brake pads. And just a slight tap on the pins for them to get seated properly, and that's it, we're done. Don't forget the back cover to finish it off. Now it's time for the master cylinder, which is pretty straightforward. I've got the body and the ports in it as clean as I could, but sadly the paint is flaking and missing in quite a few areas, so it is what it is. Maybe I should have replaced the whole thing, but in order to save some money on this project, the owner opted for a rebuild kit. So I'm just applying a bit of silicone oil on it. And carefully slide it in, making sure the seals don't catch on anything and don't get their edges rolled over. Install the circlip and that's it, we're done with it. Just make sure the plunger slides in and out easily and we can move on. So I've got a new O-ring for the brake fluid reservoir as well, which I mentioned in the previous video. It looks like it may have been leaking. Pop it in place and install the bottom screw to hold it there. And the old diaphragm for the reservoir looks very perished and cracked, so I'm putting a new one instead before it causes any trouble. A bit of oil on the edges again, just to make sure it seats properly. Put in the plastic support frame, and I'm going to put it back in the reservoir for now. And I'm going to put the cover and the bolts in as well, just so everything stays together. Now onto the other side of the brake lever assembly. I'm installing a new brake light switch, because the old one was a bit damaged. Install a seal and washer that came with the new rebuild kit. The old seal was quite perished and a lot of it missing. And they're ready to go back together. I've got a new stainless pivot pin for the brake lever as well. The old one was really seized in there and I had to use penetrating fluid, heat and an impact screwdriver for days in order to get it to move a bit and actually be able to knock it out. But I've got a new stainless one now, which shouldn't seize as bad, and I'm also going to apply grease to it. Tighten it all up and we're done. I'm ready to slide it back on the bars. Tighten the pinch bolt so it doesn't go anywhere, reinstall the switch gear and tighten up the brake line. Now, I mentioned in the previous video I quite like the bevel gear and chain design on this throttle mechanism, but they do tend to wear the teeth out. Fortunately, the teeth on the twist grip and on the bevel gear are fine in this case, but they do tend to wear. There is an updated design for the bevel gear and the cover that has a bigger journal and a bigger bore in the gear, which makes it more stable and less prone to wearing, but this one still seems to be old design. However, it's all fine, so I'm not going to replace anything now. And I've got a new set of throttle cables. These are the Venhill Featherlight ones, which are Teflon coated. So let's put it all back together. And now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the brake caliper and tighten all the bolts to spec. I'm going to put the brake line bracket back in place and then reconnect the line. Tighten everything up and we'll be ready to fill it. I've got a pressure bleeder with some fresh fluid in it from a previous job on my car, so I'm going to use that and bleed the brakes the normal way, which I'm not going to film anymore. And that's it. The front braking system is all back together and seems to be working properly, and I'm looking forward to taking this bike on a test ride and see what it feels like. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.